Hi humans, it's Hannah. Welcome back to my channel and thank you so much for joining me for today's video. I'm very excited to start this little series on my channel. A while back I posted a community post asking you all to send me your scary stories in emails. Y'all came through, and just from that post alone I have now received like 75 stories, and I anticipate a lot more coming through as I start the series and people again start to get the memo. So first, before we get into it, I have to put out a couple ground rules for this type of video. First of all, my inspiration for this video was specifically Hannah Alonso, but also other anti-MLM channels often read stories from users about their MLM horror stories, and I thought it would be really fun to have a version of that on my channel where I do your scary stories. If you want to submit a story in the future, all you have to do is send me an email to the email down below, the HannahTheHorrible Yahoo email, not my business email, please. That will get deleted because my management will get it and they won't know what to do with it. It's just unlikely I'll get it. So please, only to the Hannah_the_horrible@yahoo.com email. And please put scary story somewhere in the subject line because I have a filter in my email to put it directly to that folder. So please put that in the subject line to make sure that I see it. If you want to submit a story, it does not have to be paranormal. It can be paranormal, but it doesn't have to be paranormal. It can be something that actually just happened to you that was terrifying. It can be wholesome. It can be funny. It can be, like I said, it could be paranormal or something unexplained or weird, but it could also just be a true story of something that actually scary happened. I just want to make that abundantly clear that I would like a variety of stories. I don't only want paranormal stories. And also, if you submit a story, make sure to let me know in the story if you would like to remain anonymous or not. That's important. And then last, I would just like to say that typically these videos are going to be extra videos on my channel. I am planning on doing this as a way to get up additional videos from my more than just my weekly videos every month, just to get you guys extra content because I feel like you guys might enjoy this kind of thing, but they're easier videos for me to make because obviously I don't have to write them. So I'm just reading other people's stories. So that is the plan, that usually they're going to be extras. However, June has just been very crazy for me. I've been insanely busy. A lot of you guys know, if you listen to my podcast, you know that I'm moving literally at the end of this week. And so it was either no video at all because I will literally not have a studio because I'll be moving and I'll be out of town that week anyway. Or it could be something like this that's actually doable for me. So with all that aside, I promise every intro to these videos won't be that long. But with all that aside, let's get right into these stories. I highly suggest grabbing a cup of tea or something cozy, hot cocoa, wine, water, whatever you prefer to drink, and grab a blankie if it's cold. Unless it's really hot where you are, then I'm sorry. It's really cold where I am. I'm in Washington and it's still raining and cloudy here, even though it's June. But I have a blankie on because I'm chilly and we're going to read these stories together. Okay. Hey, Hannah, this is Craig, and this is my personal scary story. This is actually why I believe in ghosts. Back in 2007, I was dating a girl named Kat. I was about 19 or 20 when this happened. The house we lived in was notoriously haunted. I didn't really believe in anything like that at the time and thought it was all crazy. One night we were laying in bed. For context, our bedroom was in the attic of a 4-story Victorian home. Say no more. If you're in an old Victorian home, it's pretty much redundant. It's pretty much it being haunted is pretty much redundant. Like, all Victorian homes are haunted. I'm fairly confident. We were just getting ready to go to bed when we both just got a bad feeling. The feeling of dread just wouldn't leave either of us alone. Suddenly, we heard what sounded like a bowling ball being rolled down the stairs right outside our room. Now, keep in mind, her brother and uncle lived on the 3rd floor, but nobody lived on the 1st and 2nd floors. It was mostly still under repair, but it was a slow, methodical boom, 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 like a bowling ball was being pushed and stopped at each individual step in about a 3-second interval from each other. I grabbed my gun I had and ran out to look. By the time I exited the top of the attic, I'd made my way down the to the third floor where Kat's brother and uncle both also had their guns drawn, and Kat's brother was at his room's doorway. He said to me, "Hey man, you hear that too?" I told him, "Yeah, it sounded like it started outside our room." Keep in mind, the banging was still going on down the stairs below us. We both ran downstairs and caught up to the banging, and there was nothing around. We could hear the banging, but there was nobody there causing the banging. The next day, we called and asked a Catholic priest to come take a look at the house and give it a blessing. Honestly, good call. Keep in mind, I live in a small southern town where Catholicism isn't the major religion. The priest got to the house. Like, honestly, I'm not religious at all, but if something like this happened to me, you bet your ass I would probably gladly call a priest and ask for help, because yeah. The priest got to the house, took a few steps in and said, "No, there's an evil here I can't get rid of." And he just left. That's just the first story about that house, but it's a historical part of the city. Look up Cornstalk Heights in Harriman, Tennessee. A lot of the houses there are confirmed to be haunted, and I just happened to live in one. I ended up moving out about a year later. That's just a general description of what happened, but if you have any other questions, let me know. Love your work, Craig. Thank you so much, Craig. And oh my God, I'm gonna look it up right now. Cornstalk Heights, Harriman, Tennessee. I know I'm probably saying this. This is probably a cocky thing to say, because people that have actually experienced scary things in supposedly haunted houses probably would think I'm weird for saying this, but is it weird that I kind of want to live in a haunted house? Maybe if it was a friendly ghost. Okay, this is what I get when I look up Cornstalk Heights in Harriman, Tennessee. The houses are so pretty. I love Victorian houses. They do look haunted. They do all look like there's definitely ghosts in every single one of them. But, oh, that's so cool. Wow. I mean, that sounds really scary, but at least, like, honestly, I'd be more scared of a real intruder that could also have a gun. Most of the time, I've never heard of anybody actually being, like, killed by a ghost, so I don't know. Hi, Hannah. I really like your channel. Thank you so much. If you read this out loud, I'd like to remain anonymous. This is my scary story, and I still can't really explain. One night after taking a shower, I was sitting on my bed, and my window was to my left a few feet away. I had been sitting on my phone for about 10 minutes or so, just in my shower stuff, when all of a sudden I hear 3 very clear and loud bangs/knocks on my window. Just imagine bang, bang, bang on a glass window. My first thought wasn't, oh, it's a ghost. I thought some stupid burglar was trying to get in the house, and their first step was knocking on my window to see if anyone was home. I really thought it was just a stupid person. Immediately, I ran upstairs to my parents' room and told my stepdad that someone is by my window, and I heard loud knocks. He looked around in our backyard with a super bright flashlight. He's really into good quality flashlights and tactical gear, and saw no one. Keep in mind that our backyard has a lot of trees, and someone might be able to hide in the surrounding brush. But the trees are nowhere thick enough to where someone could hide behind them, and we would be able to spot them if they tried. He scanned the entire area and found nobody. At this point, I had tried to think of what could have banged on my window. Now I know that it was 3 loud knocks because it was rhythmic and not random. It sounded like someone was trying to get my attention, like if you were tapping your car window to get the attention of the person next to you on the road, like tapping someone on the shoulder. There are trees next to my window that pine cones fall off of, but there were no pine cones near my window at the time. We do have wildlife frequently, but it was at night, so nothing was out. We do have walkers and joggers at night, and someone could walk up to my window from the sidewalk to pull a funny prank. However, I would say that I live in a nice neighborhood where we don't get any pranksters who would just come up to my window, bang on it just for fun, and leave. Usually, If I have an experience like this where I think it might be ghostly, I try to come up with the most reasonable explanation as to why it happened. I'm sure someone maybe just ran up to my window just to scare me, but then again, my window was covered by a curtain, so there was no way they could have seen someone was there other than my light that was on. Anyways, I always just think of this as my only real scary ghost story, and I think it's pretty spooky. I was super scared at the time, and nothing like that has happened since. Thank you for reading and potentially including it in your video. Don't mean for it to be so long, but I appreciate it nonetheless. Have a stellar day. This next story has a little disclaimer beforehand. It says, "Hey Hannah, so I posted this true paranormal story on Reddit back in 2015, where it has been picked up and read on YouTube by a few popular narrators, including Hellfreezer and Unit 522, but I would love to hear you narrate it on your channel. This is 100% true. I believe I called the story No Reflection by Adam J. This is a long one. Everybody buckle up, but I am excited to read it. If other YouTubers have picked it out specifically for their videos and he's the person that wrote it is one of my subscribers, like, of course I have to read that. Okay, here we go. I grew up in a small town in the Piedmont region of Virginia. Rolling country hills, one high school, everyone was your neighbor, that sort of thing. It was me, my mother, my father, and my brother. And just for the purpose of the story, my brother is 6 years older than me. Well, my town is pretty small, as I said before. So small that my family, my grandparents, and my great-grandparents all lived in 3 separate houses about 1 mile apart from each other. Once my great-grandfather died in 1989, my grandma moved in with her mother to help take care of her, and she was getting old in years herself. This didn't bother my grandma, as her and my grandpa's house was only 500 feet down the gravel road. I don't remember too much about my great granny. I just remember that she was always very grumpy and she would always yell at my brother and I when we would go over to her house to play. That's relatable. My brother and I would do this because our house was very small and our great granny's house was a big open Cape Cod style house with plenty of room to run around and spread out our toys. When my great granny passed away in the first week of February 1994, it took a toll on us all because within that very same week, my grandfather passed away as well. This means that my grandma lost her mom and her husband both within about 5 days' time. I also need to mention that my great granny was on hospice care and she died in the comfort of her home in her chair surrounded by her family. As I grew on in age, 8, 9, 10 years old, I started to retain a better memory about that house and really just how creepy it was. The upstairs in particular, as my brother and I were ever really allowed up there. I think they meant were never really allowed up there. This became especially true since my grandma ended up selling her and my grandpa's house down the gravel road and permanently living in this one. And due to the trauma of losing her mother and husband in 1 week, she developed a pretty bad hoarding habit. That's heartbreaking. Hoarding is like, people act like it's something, like it's just people being lazy, but hoarding is almost always related to a really bad mental illness and trauma. It's so sad. Sometimes when my brother and I were visiting, my grandma would be occupied with her Avon downstairs and we'd sneak upstairs to snoop through all 4 of the cluttered rooms. Do you mean she was she was an Avon lady? Like the MLM Avon? Because if she was, that's amazing. I mean, it's not amazing. I hate MLMs, but that's just funny that I was inspired by anti-MLM content to make these videos and somebody has a relation to an MLM in it. Anyway, okay. But one room up there always caught my attention. I found myself feeling very lightheaded whenever I'd go near, and sometimes feelings of unease or dread would overcome me. It was just your normal room, very small hardwood floors and only a twin bed and a small dresser. Oh, and a lot of junk like old Christmas boxes, Avon products, and my great granny's worn clothes. But over in the corner of the room, right beside a small crawl-in storage area, was a mirror. I always found myself strangely attracted to this mirror for some reason. It gave me an eerie sort of feeling, one I can still very much feel to this day. I often caught my brother giving it a strange glance every now and then too. It wasn't until I started seeing this mirror in my dreams that I started to question its history and why my conscience was showing it to me in my sleeping state of mind. The dreams were very vivid, and as frightening as they were, I never questioned during the dream itself what was happening or why I was there. I sort of felt like I was there for a reason. They started with me standing on the porch of the house, staring at the door. It was nighttime and quiet all around me with a slight breeze, a very warm and comfortable summer night. The dream progressed with me making my way into the house, except something was a bit off. I was floating, and whenever I'd enter a room inside, the door would open for me. All the lights were off inside, but I could still see from the full moon eerily casting its bright light through the open windows, with the midnight breeze making the curtains dance around inside. Everything seemed to be in slow motion. I make my way upstairs, where I'm guided each time to the same room with the mirror. This is the part of the dream where I sense an impending feeling of doom. It's because mirrors are creepy. It makes sense. I make my way in front of the mirror, but oddly enough, I never see my reflection. I'm forced to stare at it when all of a sudden an apparition of my great granny appears. Her skin looks gray and cold, her eyes dark and hollow. The uneasy feeling grows more and more as I stare and start to realize that I am now aware I am dreaming. I'm scared to death and I need to wake myself up somehow. Then all of a sudden, the image in the mirror turns truly sinister. Her mouth widens, her eyes glow a deep shade of red, and she lets out the most terrifying scream. This is when I wake up covered in sweat. I had that same exact dream a very many number of times growing up, but I never knew its significance, if there was any at all. I never told anyone, not even my grandma. Fast forward to 2012, my grandma lost her battle to cancer on Mother's Day. Oh my God. My family and I took part in the huge responsibility of cleaning up that house, as we had plans to sell it and move to Texas, where we currently are. I feel for you on that. I have also had family members who have passed away and they had hoarding tendencies, and thankfully I was not involved in the cleanup because it was in a different state, but my parents had to be, and they said it was it was the worst ever to try to figure out what to do with all of their, junk, basically. And it makes my parents very good about throwing stuff away because they don't want to put that on us when they die. It's crazy. The dream had escaped me for some time, being I had not had it in about 10 years. But when my brother and I, now in our 30s, had the duties of cleaning out that room, the eeriness of it all returned to me. We had a lot of fun times up here snooping around, didn't we, little brother? He said. I didn't remember too much of it, but yes, fun times, I said. My brother lifts his finger and points. Hey, do you remember that mirror right there? Yes, I said. It was always very creepy to me. But why do you ask? To which he replies, just wondering, I'm not sure if you ever knew, but that mirror was our great granny's favorite mirror from her childhood. And it just so happens that right below that mirror, directly parallel to downstairs, sits the chair that our great granny died in. Yeah, it's fine. As if that didn't make my skin crawl enough, he paused for a quick second, grins, and with a confused look, he says, for some reason, I used to have the strangest dreams about that mirror. Thanks. I hate it, but also I love it. Oh my gosh, that's so creepy. Mirrors are creepy, dude. All mirror stories never end well. Mirrors are freaking teleportations to other dimensions, I'm convinced. Okay, this next story is from Emily, and this one's cool because it comes with an audio file. It comes with a little audio clip on it to go along with it. So, hi, I've got plenty of scary stories. Actually, I have a video of a weird ass noise I heard coming from what sounded like the back of my unit townhouse at 1 to 2 a.m. I work from home during the afternoons, and after work, I typically go into my basement and either sew, paint, or do other crafting activities for stuff I sell at craft shows and on Etsy. And I go to bed at 8 a.m. and wake up at 4 p.m. to start my normal job again. It was a bit after work when I was laying on my couch playing on my phone before I went into the basement, and this weird pulsing noise started up. I think from the back of my unit outside. It sounded robotic. It was irregular, but coming and going in a pulse-like fashion. I have lived here for 11 years now and never heard anything close to this ever before. It definitely wasn't a car, any appliance in my place, the heating or cooling system, or any type of machinery used for construction that I have ever heard. I am very familiar with noises from my house, and this was not a sound I have heard. I started filming it to get it recorded, and it's still eerie watching it. I got spooked. I am easily spooked and definitely believe in the paranormal, so I decided to retire to my bedroom instead of going into the basement that night. Another good call. I'm so glad to know my audiences know what to do in situations that are similar to horror movies. Don't go in the basement if something creepy is happening to you. That is horror movie Logic 101. I'm not saying it is paranormal, and I honestly would greatly love to hear that it's not paranormal. And if anyone had the answer for what the fuck this was over a year ago and I haven't heard it since. I'll attach the video. The camera is pointed to my dining room, which is the wall at my backyard patio. The big block covered up is my bird cage. It was late at night and they get covered so they sleep better. It is absolutely not my parakeets making that noise either, LMAO. Thank you, Emily. Let's listen to this audio file. What the heck? Okay, I think I have to listen to it again with headphones when I'm editing, but I can hear it a little bit and oh my god. It sounds like someone like whispering or talking in the background. What the heck? I don't like that. Oh my gosh. This next story says, I have a collection of weird stuff that happened in my childhood home, but I'm really bad at explaining things, so I hope this all makes sense. Sorry in advance. My childhood house had a creepy vibe to it from the time we moved in. For example, the first day my sister went to the house, her and my mom were in the basement, again with the basements, painting, and my sister kept hearing heavy chairs scooting around the upstairs kitchen. We didn't have any furniture in the house yet, and my dad eventually brought in a grandfather clock. I don't remember where he got it, but he kept it in the corner of the kitchen, and a lot of the time my sister and I would come home from school and it'd be moved to the middle of our kitchen. So weird stuff was kind of the norm at this house, but the weirdest thing happened within the first month we moved in. So my bedroom was right next to my parents when we first moved in. I kept my bedroom door open and my parents kept their door open while I adjusted to the new house. One night, my mom was watching TV in bed when she saw a shadow move into my room, back out of my room, and then go back in. At first, she thought it was one of our dogs, but she realized they were both chilling in her room. After realizing the shadow wasn't one of the dogs, she freaked out and woke up my dad, making him grab me out of my room. Of course, there was nothing in my room, and after a bit, she calmed down. I was sent back into my room and my parents went to bed. The next day, my mom came in to wake me up for school, and I had all my stuffed animals positioned in a circle around my mattress. My bed frame wasn't in the house yet, so my mattress was on the floor. Above my head, I had my pound puffy stuffed animal. It was a flat pillow-like plush, positioned on its hind legs with its head pointed down, looking at me with its head slightly tilted. When my mom asked me why I did this, I apparently told her that they were protecting me, but I refused to tell her what from. I never slept in that room again. My mom likes to use this story as kind of a gotcha when I mention that I don't believe in ghosts or God anymore. In reality, I think I know the actual reason I did it. I have heavy suspicions that I'm autistic, and one common thing autistic kids do, from what I read, is lining up toys and stuffed animals. So I think my mom freaking out, in turn freaking me out, some major religious fears of demons and stuff, and and undiagnosed autism all accumulated into this weird occurrence. But who knows? I do love a good like paranormal story that is creepy, but also could have a very plausible explanation. And you being autistic and your mom freaking out about demons and stuff like that, like maybe she associated symptoms of something else with it being something paranormal. However, I would be curious to know what that shadow was that she thought she saw go in and out of your room. Like maybe both things can be true. Maybe you are autistic and you knew that your stuffed animals, putting them on a neat row like that, would, like in your childhood mind, thought you could protect you because you kind of had this weird underlying inkling of something in your room. I don't know. Like I said, I'm a skeptic too. Okay. If you read this in a video, can you please call me by my YouTube username, Half Awake, so people know it's me when I gush in the comments? Of course. I use she, her pronouns, by the way. Thank you. I also changed all names in this story because I don't want my family or anyone involved to realize I shared this. Also, thank you for that. I really appreciate that, so I don't have to go block them all out. Okay. Hi, Hannah. I want to start out by saying that I love your channel. I discovered you a couple years ago and you're easily in my top 5 favorite YouTubers. Okay. Now pause for a second so I can scream into my pillow at the realization that you're reading my story. I'm famous. You're very sweet. Trust me, I appreciate you sending in the story. Okay. It's 11 p.m. as I'm writing this, and I'm supposed to be finishing up my geometry homework, so I'm going to get into the actual story part. My half-brother, who for the purpose of the story I'll call loser, oh no, has always been troubled. Before I was born, he tried to set the house on fire multiple times. He got kicked out of the military for being too violent, and he got kidnapped once. That one's not his fault, just an interesting tidbit. He yelled at me constantly, and whenever we would play with my dinosaurs together, he'd hit my hands with their horns or teeth to try to make me bleed. Oh dear. I have 2 siblings, Weirdo, Affectionate, and Boots, who's only a year younger than me. I also have an older half-sister, his full sister, who was problematic in her own ways, but that's irrelevant. We've since disowned both of my half-siblings, though, LOL, though my dad wants to reconnect with them. I'll go in chronological order of his murder attempts, though the one that happened last is the one I remember most vividly. Okay, I don't remember him ever doing this, but my mom has told me the story numerous times. When I was a baby, I think 1 or 2, he was extremely jealous of all the attention Boots and I were getting due to us being, I don't know, newborn babies. Anyway, numerous times he tried to strangle me to death. I would have been around 12 to 14 at this time, I believe. This continued until I was 5, though I don't remember it even slightly. The second time I remember much more vividly. I think I was 4 at the time. His bed was made of several already thick mattresses stacked on top of each other, so it was pretty high up. Being a kid and not understanding how much he hated me, all I wanted was to get his attention so he would play with me. I climbed up onto his bed, and he was leaning against the wall, and I was right near the edge. He asked me if I wanted to play tug of war, and I was so excited to finally be able to play with him. We each grabbed either side of a blanket. It was green with leaves and jungle animals printed on it, and as soon as I was pulling as hard as I could, he let go. That's so mean. This could be written off as him playing too rough, but he didn't react as I fell backward and landed head first onto the ground. I was crying for my mom, who's amazing, and my grandma, who's awful, and it took them at least a minute to realize I was hurt and come running into the room. A minute in which he could have reacted or gotten help himself. I think she meant gotten up to help himself. I guess he might have just been shocked by it, but considering everything else, I don't think so. I had to go to the ER and I had a major concussion. It was pretty cool there though. I got to go into a CAT scan, which I love doing to this day. I don't know, I might just be weird. You might be, because I've had to do a lot of CAT scans and I don't enjoy them at all, mostly because I usually have to drink a whole bottle of like iodine contrast beforehand, and I very much do not like those. But they put one of those sticky head net things on me to monitor my brain. Anyway, the last time I remember most vividly, I was in kindergarten. On occasion, I would go over to my friend doctor's church after it closed while our parents had prepper meetings. If you don't know what preppers are, they're basically doomsday apocalyptics with a bunch of guns and enough food in their pantries to last 8 years. Yes, I do know what preppers are. It's a thing. Our group consisted of me, my friend Doctor's little brother T and E, my little brother Boots, and a second grader. Most of the time we were inside playing either in the kitchen or the basketball courts with the lights off, of course, or just running through the halls. That day, though, we were outside in the large back field while our parents were setting up a barbecue. In the very back, there was a drainage ditch. The sides of it were completely overgrown with short shrubs. It was in Colorado, and it was maybe 5 feet deep. The water moved extremely fast, loud enough that we could hear it from several feet away. Loser, her brother, was supposed to be supervising us, and we were supposed to stay far away from the drainage ditch. We were playing, I'm afraid that I already know where this is going. We were playing a chase game of some kind. It might have been tag, but I don't remember. Us kids were sprinting as fast as we could. Being a show-off and mildly athletic, I was ahead of everyone else by a couple feet, with all the little brothers in the very back. I glanced behind me to see how close Doctor was to catching up when the inevitable happened. Due to the thick bushes, I didn't realize how close I was to the edge. It wasn't a shallow drop either. I fell straight down into the 5 feet of water. My head went under and I couldn't touch the bottom as I was being swept away closer and closer to the black plastic tube at the end of the water that would take me to God knows where. Cartoon style, I managed to grab into a root that was sticking out from a bush or tree. It was high enough that I was able to keep my head above water, but I had literally no arm strength, so I couldn't pull myself out. I would have been peeing my pants because I can't swim, and being a child, I would be so terrified. Oh my gosh. My friend sprinted towards me to try to help me, and I remember thinking that if they came any closer, they'd fall in too. They grabbed at my shirt and tried to pull me out. I was hoping maybe Loser would help, but he was just standing there watching and smiling. It's not like he was too far away either. All he had to do was reach out his arm and I'd be able to grab it. Eventually, my friends lifted me just enough that I could get a better grip on the plants and push myself up using the side of the ditch. I was too shocked to even cry. Oh, poor kid. Oh my gosh. We all walked back to where the adults were at the top of the hill. Loser didn't follow us. One lady laughed at me and mockingly asked me if I had peed my pants. Bitch. Seriously, what the heck? That's so rude. Not to, like, you're a child. Are you kidding me? Why would you just try to embarrass a kid like that? Especially when they were probably already embarrassed and just went through something really traumatic. That's so rude. And after that, I think my mom took Boots and I to the car and we left early. Loser wasn't allowed to supervise us after that, thankfully, geez. And he and my half-sister both left to join the military soon after. Anyway, there you have it. I know it wasn't that scary and not spooky like a lot of stories probably will be. I hope you enjoyed it though, even if you don't end up using it in a video. If you are interested, I have some more stories like how one of my teachers staged a school shooting, or the time my dad nearly killed us all because he threw our car keys into traffic while we were driving. Thank you so much for your story. I actually, like I said, I do like non-paranormal stories too. And obviously I don't know your brother. Like, obviously I don't know him or what was going on with his mental health or anything like that. But those are some concerning behaviors. Like, I can understand, like, I mean, yeah, brothers, when they're like kids and young teenagers, they're gonna be little shits, right? Like, they're gonna be terrible to their little siblings and mean, but they're gonna like make fun of them, maybe push them or something every now and then. The behavior that you're talking about here sounds like again, I don't know him, but it seems like a red flag for possibly escalation later in life of just being again, I'm not saying he's going to commit a crime or anything like that, but of just being a not very kind person, because what you're describing here sounds like him having a lack of empathy for other people, which could potentially be diagnosed with something or other later down the line. That's what it sounds like to me. That's bananas. I'm so sorry. That must have been so traumatic as a child. Like, just even if he was having mental health issues, it's still not your fault that you were put in that situation, and he's still responsible for his actions. So that's still like really scary. Hello, it's a different day. This one says, "Hi, Hannah. I saw your post on YouTube and wanted to share a paranormal experience my family had a couple years ago at our old house. My name on YouTube is Miel. Sorry if I'm saying that wrong. I might be. You don't have to include this. I just wanted to mention it in case you ever run across one of my comments. Hope you're doing well, and here goes my story." It does ring a bell. Thank you, as always, for commenting. This experience happened in my old house back in LA. My whole family saw this strange thing happen, and to this day, we still think about it and how weird it was. For context, my family is Hispanic with family back in Mexico. One of my mom's relatives entrusted a person who was flying back to Mexico to the US with a card with the image of a saint in the Catholic religion. I can't remember which one, but it's not too important. When my mom received this image, she was told that she had to invite the saint into our home and offer them hospitality. So my mom, keeping with tradition, also because the person was there watching us, proceeded to open our door and welcome the saint in, showing them around the house and overall just doing things you would normally do when you welcome someone into your home. So that happened, and it was a little strange to me, but I didn't think much of it. A couple days later, it was Sunday, and we are getting ready for Mass. Right when we were heading out, my dad called me over to the sofa. Our sofa was one of those soft sofas that sink in, but they eventually puff up and smooth out again as the air comes back up. On the part of the sofa where a person would normally rest their head, I could clearly see the image of a face smiling. It had 2 evenly spaced holes for eyes, a dipped nose, and a line in the slight smile. The place where a person would normally sit at also had a slight indentation, like a butt had been sitting there. Now you might think, well, maybe someone was playing around and pulling a joke, but that wasn't the case. Neither my brother nor I nor my parents had done this. We thought maybe it was a coincidence that the sofa was like that, so we tried recreating it on the cushion next to it, which was exactly the same because it was a love seat. We poked the sofa with our finger and tried to recreate the holes. We sat on the cushion and even smushed my face against it to try and see if my face would indent the sofa, but the sofa would just bounce back up and fill up the holes. Since we were running out of time, running late to Mass, my dad said just to not bother it and we would see if it was still there when we got home. After Mass, we arrived back home and somehow the face and butt indent had disappeared. No one was in the house at the time since we had gone to Mass, and we had all exited at the same time. We wish we still had the pictures, but the only phones we had were flip phones, and my parents lost the phone before we got a chance of saving the picture somewhere. To this day, I don't know what happened there, but we couldn't help but wonder if the saint we invited into our home, or maybe some other entity, had actually came into our home and decided to chill on our sofa that day. That is bizarre. The only thing I can think of for like the face that you saw in the sofa, like that sounds to me like the pareidolia effect. And that's, I mean, like most humans do that. It's the tendency to see patterns, especially human face patterns in objects, in random stuff, like craters on the moon and stuff often look like faces to us. So it kind of feels to me like maybe that's something that was happening here. I don't know about the indent on the other cushion though. That part is pretty bizarre. Like, why would there be a random indentation there when nobody was sitting there? Especially, and then also your whole family seeing it. It's very weird. This one, I'm very excited. This one is from someone from Brazil. I don't know if they're actually in Brazil. They are in Brazil. Okay. Hi, Hannah. Love your channel. You're great. My name is Julio. I'm from Brazil. Thank you so much, Julio. I live in a state. I'm probably going to butcher the names of the states and other places in Brazil. I am very, very sorry. I live in a state called Minas Gerais. Here, the population that lives in the countryside is common and quite large. I grew up on farms and honestly, I loved it. The feeling of fresh air, the birds singing in my window while I enjoyed a good cup of coffee. Oh, good times. But today I live in the city. But living on farms wasn't always a fairy tale. I lived on a total of 4 farms, and 2 of them, some things happened that I still can't explain. Farms around here almost always have large and old houses where several people have lived in the past. I believe that some people leave energies in the place, and this attracts certain occurrences. The first inexplicable situation I had was a farm that I lived with my parents called Mandaguan. Sorry. A beautiful yellow house, very big. I loved it there. I spent a good part of my childhood there. I remember a situation that happened there, which even today intrigues me a lot and gives me the shudders to remember. I have an older sister, Gabby. I was very close with her at the time. On certain rainy nights, the energy on the farm could fail due to weather and having old power installations. On a night of very heavy rain, the power went out. My parents used candles around the house to at least have a source of light for us. On this particular night, me and my sister were very afraid of thunder, and whenever it came, we covered ourselves completely with a blanket and stayed down there waiting for the thunder to stop because somehow in my child mind, the blanket could protect me, lol. Same. I used to do that as a kid too. Thunder and lightning would really scare me as a kid. I was like absolutely sure it would somehow come through my roof and get me. Me and Gabby, we were in the living room sitting on the sofa and my parents in the kitchen, which was far away, by the way. When one of the thunder, we covered our heads with fear, but what was to come scared me much more than thunder and lightning. The moment we covered our heads, we felt 2 hands landing on our heads over the blanket. I'm getting goosebumps right now just remembering. That hand was huge, slow, heavy, and somehow cold. I had no reaction, my eyes filled with tears. The room was relatively dark, and my sister, in despair and in an act of courage, pulled off the blanket, revealing that there was no one there with us or nearby. We ran to the kitchen, crying and screaming desperately after my parents. To this day, I don't understand what happened there, but I remember my mother saying that we shouldn't have been alone in the room that night. Anyway, this was my first occurrence with what I believe to be something inexplicable. The next one I'm going to tell you happened years later on another farm that we moved to. Sorry, the text is so long. Now we are living in a new farm. It was called Sarah, which loosely translates to mountains. Since the farm resided among small mountains in a way, we already arrived at the place knowing of the existence of supernatural occurrences there, but my parents didn't care. My parents are pretty skeptical of the supernatural, to be honest, me too. But oh boy, that farm had something really wrong happening there. I'll list a few that I witnessed and a few others that my mother in particular saw and heard. Oh, I'm ready for it. Love a good scary farm story. To begin with, the house we were living in now was relatively good, well fitted out. I was a young child, but already took my baths alone, well, at least until a particular event happened to me. I played at the backyard with my toys until the end of the afternoon, and I almost always got sand all over me. I really miss it though. Anyways, eventually I had to take a shower at the beginning of the night, and something strange, very strange happened. I went into the bathroom with the light on without any problem. But in the moment that I closed the door, the light started to flip off by itself. I screamed, I cried with fear until my mother came to rescue me, and since then it had always been like this. I was in the bathroom alone, the light went off, my father tried to change the light bulb, and with them the light worked normally, but with me, it insisted on going off by itself whenever I closed the door and I was alone. Things escalated from there. My mother used to walk around the farm, and as she was cleaning a large old house that the owners of the farm visited, she says that one time she heard plates and glasses breaking violently inside the kitchen of that house in question, and when she went to go check, nothing was broken or out of place. She told me that she's seen shadows through that house, the sounds of what looked like to be trees falling to the ground around the farm, but when she and my father go look, there's no tree on the ground. But the memory that most terrified me on this farm was the last one I'm going to tell you about. Our house was on a hill which faced another hill where there's coffee plantations and a low road in the middle that divided the two hills. The coffee plantation was vast. There was only us on the farm in those days. It was 6 or 7 o'clock in the afternoon. It was already getting dark. I was playing in the kitchen with my toys when I heard the angry dogs outside barking and my father calling my mother in the front of the house where there was a view of the other hill where the coffee plantations are located. We all ran outside to see or to better hear. On the other hill, something started to scream while apparently running down the hill. It was a horrible scream, a scream that I can only describe as a sadistic scream. It was loud and dry and seemed to laugh among the agonizing screams. That thing screamed apparently all the way down the hill, and when it got down there, it stopped. We couldn't see anything though. We just heard. After that day, almost every day at 6 p.m., the scream came back and took the same route. Our dogs barked a lot more. My father never let them go out after that thing, thank God. My father said that the thing wasn't from God, but it wasn't natural, and that my sister and I should avoid looking at the hill when the scream started and not to pay attention to it. We lived another month on the farm with those horrible screams. I remember crying a lot when I heard them, and my mother closing the windows when that deafening scream echoed through the hills. Soon we moved from that farm, and I never understood what that was. Nowadays, older, I still think about going back to that farm and seeing if the phenomenon still occurs. It was horrible but incredible at the same time. A disembodied scream. Thanks for reading. I love your content. Julio, thank you so much for your story and all the details. Listen, I can't explain everything in your video, and I'm also very, very skeptical of the paranormal, but I'm also a big believer on not gaslighting people. I also think that people have scary experiences, and regardless of any explanation, what they experience is real. And I don't, farms also seem like if hauntings are real, farms seem like the most likely thing to be haunted, right? However, for the last part with the scream, I would like to offer you a possible explanation. Obviously, I was not there and didn't hear it myself. And as far as I know, you don't have a recording of the scream, so I can't say for sure. But I might offer just a possible explanation. And again, I don't know what kind of animals you have in Brazil. I'll look it up after this video. But I know, for example, some places in America, we have cougars. And cougars can make some extremely scary sounds. Some cougars can scream like a child, like it sounds like a human child or woman screaming bloody murder. It sounds like somebody you need to call 911 and get this woman help. It sounds like a woman being kidnapped, honestly. And it's actually cougars being loud and just screaming, big cats. So I don't know if you have those in Brazil, but I know other animals can also sometimes make extremely scary noises. They're often defending their territory, or they're often telling all the other animals of their species in the area to back off, and that's my hill. And that's what I'm wondering this was, because that would make sense that almost every night then it would come back to that same area. Maybe it was a territorial thing or something like that, and it happened to be this animal that blended in with the background and you couldn't see, but it was screaming at the top of its lungs. That doesn't really make it less scary, because obviously huge animals like that can be scary as well. But I don't know if there's, let me look it up, but are there cougars? Where in Brazil were you? Not quite in South America, but you get my point. I don't know for sure if that's what it is or if it was another animal, but it might be something to look into, because I would be very interested to know if that was possibly the explanation for that part. This is going to be the last story for today. This one's a lot shorter. This is one that we're keeping anonymous. So, when my oldest son was about 3 months old, I made the mistake of leaving him on my couch and stepping away to put laundry in the dryer. It was mere minutes. Almost immediately, I hear a small cry coming from the living room. My sweet baby was on the floor. Not like he had rolled off to the front of the floor, no. He was at the arm end of the couch on the wood tile floor. Between my low-armed couch and the door was a wicker basket of stuffed animals. My baby was on the other side of that, 2 feet from the couch. The wicker basket was between him and the couch. So I think I had to read that a couple times, but I think she's saying like it's not like he just like rolled off the couch and was right by the couch and rolled off himself. It's as if he got lifted and moved somewhere else because he was several feet away from the couch, I believe is what this person is saying. His cry was not from pain, more like a discomfort cry. The wood floor was cool beneath him. It was like someone had lifted him up and gently placed him on the floor to teach me a very valuable lesson. I picked him up, of course, to comfort him, but to this day I am still uncomfortable from the experience. I called my husband, bawling. I could hardly speak. I was and still am terrified that I could have done it. I was the only one home, but I didn't. Of course, I'll always think, but did I? Did I disassociate? It's always been there in the back of my mind. But it was literal seconds, maybe 2 minutes at the most. He's 21 now and I've never told him, so I want to be anonymous. I have 2 more kids and I have never left them on the couch again. I wish I were making this up. First of all, I just want to say that I'm very sorry that that happened to you because that would be extremely scary. And I hope you don't beat yourself up too much about it or feel that guilty about it. Like, yeah, I know that you made a mistake, obviously, but like there's no mom shaming here. It's not, I mean, everybody makes a mistake like that. And also, you said he was 3 months old. Most 3-month-olds cannot roll over yet. So I don't know why you would be concerned about that. I've left very young babies on the couch before in like their little pillow things because when I've babysat and stuff, when they were too young to move or roll over and the parents told me to leave them there. Like, I don't think that's a weird thing to do, because I'm sure you didn't think he could go anywhere and he shouldn't have been able to. But I just want to like make sure you know accidents happen. You're a tired mom. You said this is your oldest son, so it was your first baby. Like he was okay in the end. Like just, you know, we just learn from our mistakes. It's the best we can do. The fact that you're concerned about it like this at all and feel so guilty, I am positive that means that you are probably a really great mom. So please don't beat yourself up about that. Mistakes happen. Everybody does stuff like this, and you had no intention of hurting him. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I mean, like I'll tell on myself here. I used to work in a daycare. I worked in the infant room in daycare. And one time I did something similar. Thankfully, the baby did not fall, but I left the baby on the changing table, and there was another child in the classroom who was about to do something dangerous. I think he was reaching for scissors or something like that up on the table, and I panicked and I freaked out so much in that moment that I just reacted. I didn't even think. So I stepped away from the child on the changing table who's up way higher to get the scissors out of the hand of the kid that had the scissors. Like, it was bad. And none of those things should have happened. Everybody was okay. I got the scissors from the child, and the child on the changing table did not try to get off. She just kind of looked back at me like, why the heck did you leave me while you were changing my diaper? That was weird. So everybody was okay in the end. And I learned a valuable lesson of like, I did not think that anybody could reach the scissors from where they were. I thought they were all too little. And it's just like, you know, we just have to learn that way. It's just all we can do is try our very, very best to keep our child safe. And that's all we can do, is just do the best we can. And if we make a mistake, just learn from it. You know, it's the intentions were good. Anyway, okay. The other thing I want to say is I don't know what happened here, especially because you said he was a few feet away from the couch and it was like he was gently placed. And it wasn't like he fell off or anything like that, and you were the only one home. That is extremely weird. And I've said this, but I don't want to like gaslight you. Like, your experience is your experience, and I believe you that that's what happened. I can imagine, again, you're a first-time mom. Your baby's only 3 months old. Like, maybe you did have a moment where you like left him on the couch and you were like, I shouldn't do that. And you pretty much like blacked out for a second and picked him up and put him on the floor because you were like, oh, I have to go do the laundry. I don't want to leave him on a high spot. And maybe you're just exhausted new mom brain with your hormones all imbalanced. Like, maybe that's what, like, maybe you did just like have a few seconds where you blacked out, like you didn't know what was happening, and you moved him to safety because your autopilot instincts were telling you to put him on the floor and you forgot that you did so. I feel like that totally can happen. I've never had a baby myself, but I'm sure other moms in the comments have done very similar things. If it wasn't that, if it was something supernatural, then somebody's looking out for you, I would say. But again, I don't think it's like, it's not like you meant to hurt, it's not like you meant to do anything. And also 3-month-old can't roll over. So I just looked it up to confirm. The earliest a baby will roll over is 4 months, but typically it's around 6 months. So I just hope, like I said, that you don't feel too guilty about this. So, and I'm glad to hear that he is perfectly fine. Okay, you guys, that's gonna be all of the stories that we're going to read today. Please keep sending me these. I love reading them regardless. If yours did not get read, like I said, I got dozens and dozens and dozens. I got over 70. I simply cannot read them all in one video, but please know that I'm going to read lots of these in the future. I'm planning on this being a regular video. Even if it doesn't get a ton of views, I still think it'd be fun to just put out extra content. Okay, so if you guys could please like the video to help the channel, that would be fantastic. And I will see you all in the next one. Thank you so much to all of our patrons, as always. Colin Holmes, The Deck of Cards, Michelle Valdovinos, Tom L, Little Kittle Cat, Mitchell Shaper Meyer, Mike, Alice Paul, Brittany Phillips, Momo Neon, Marita 144, Sage K, Elderly Hipster, Puppy Hag, Rebecca Jackson, Toby, Carter, Comic-Con Anime and Gaming Convention, Sarah the Crazy Fish Lady, Blood for the Koi, Maxie, Ellison Luna, Julietta, Sophia Wood, A Bunny Apparently, Leon Vanek, Literally Lacey, Elliot Fink, I Am in Your Walls, Habromania, Cyberdog Investigations LLC, Vicky Cat, Amy B, Tickerch, Dead Without the E, Ball, Olivezilla, Chara, and our newest, MH Day and Amelie.